Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the webinar today. We'll get started in a few minutes to allow for some sign-ins past the hour. All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thank you for joining us for the webinar today. Today's webinar is called 9 Years of Stepping Up, Reflections on County Progress and Pathways Toward Success. I'm Mark Stovall, and I'm a Deputy Program Director at the Council of State Governments Justice Center, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Today's session will really provide a refresher on the narrative of the Stepping Up initiative, which turned 9 years old just last month. And we're currently undergoing a strategic planning process, and we want to share some updates to the field and explain how counties and their stakeholders can contribute their voice to this process. Next slide. To give you a sense of the agenda today, I'll introduce our other panelists, and then we'll give an orientation or reorientation to the Stepping Up initiative. Then we'll tell you about our strategic planning process and how you can get involved. One of the main ways that you can do this is by joining an upcoming listening session, and we'll discuss this more in a little bit. And then we'll talk about some additional ways to get involved and how you can engage or re-engage with Stepping Up. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. And just for a quick housekeeping note, feel free to enter questions into the Q&A feature of Zoom. We'll respond to the questions as best as we can go. And we'll likely hold some questions for the end of the webinar as well. And this webinar is being recorded, and we plan to have the recording and the slide deck available on the webinar event page within 2 weeks. Next slide. So I'm excited to be joined by my colleagues who work on the Stepping Up initiative with me. Megan Davidson, Program Director for Stepping Up at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. Kat Patterson, Senior Program Manager at the National Association of Counties. Orleni Rojas, Senior Manager, Center for Effective Public Policy. And we've partnered with Orleni over the past year for her support on Stepping Up strategic planning. And Chris Chun-Seely, Program Director, American Psychiatric Association Foundation, and then myself. Next slide. Okay, so we'll start with a quick refresher reorientation to Stepping Up, and I'll turn things over to Kat.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Kat Patterson. I'm a Senior Program Manager at the National Association of Counties, or NACO. NACO is the nonpartisan national organization representing and advocating for the 3,069 counties, parishes, and boroughs across the country. We support the 40,000 elected officials and 3.6 million county employees, including behavioral health directors, sheriffs, and all the other individuals and offices involved in the important work like the Stepping Up initiative. Next slide, please. So for kind of a little bit of an overview, one data point that I keep coming back to just in my work, and I think specifically here in Stepping Up, is that counties operate 91% of jails. And as such, counties are really on the front lines when it comes to the stepping up work and working with their partners and stakeholders to find solutions. To further fill out the picture, an estimated 2 million individuals with serious mental illness are booked into county jails each year, with prevalence rates of serious mental conditions in jails being 3 to 6 times higher than in the general population. Incarceration, unfortunately, oftentimes largely replaces hospitalization for thousands of individuals with serious mental illnesses, with county jails holding as many as 10 times more of these individuals than state psychiatric hospitals. People with serious mental illness are more likely to be arrested, spend more time in pretrial detention, serve longer sentences, have lower chances of gaining parole, and have a higher risk for mortality in jails. They're disproportionately represented in U.S. jails, both in terms of raw numbers and duration of stay. So it is, this is very much a need, and not just for counties, but really all of us that are really working when it comes to the health and safety of our communities. But all is not lost. Many counties are finding new and innovative ways to collect and share local data about individuals' treatment needs to better support care coordination and to help inform policy decisions in this work. But of course, there's still barriers and challenges. But next slide, please. The Stepping Up Initiative is one of these fantastic vehicles that's stepping in to really work on this particular issue. Stepping Up is a national movement providing counties with tools to develop cross-systems, data-driven strategies to lead measurable reductions in the number of people with mental illnesses and co-occurring substance use disorders in jails. And we have over 550 counties participating in this initiative. Launched in May 2015 by CSG Justice Center, NACO, and the APA Foundation, the initiative really works on those measurable goals to reduce the prevalence of serious mental illness, or SMI. We're a national movement. We have those 550 counties and counting, really working on this, and Stepping Up has really supported the creation and implementation of diversion programs, crisis response models, screening measures, and other systemic or systematized changes to positively impact communities and reduce jail bookings for folks with SMI. So really working collaboratively and with that focus on data-informed, data-driven intervention, right? How can we work together to improve the situation? Next slide, please. Stepping Up, 9 years and counting, has really been working in that data-driven framework with those, and already my numbers are out of date here. It's 580 counties across 45 states. Again, really focused on that collaboration among counties, local leaders, treatment providers, advocates, and other stakeholders. Again, that interdisciplinary collaborative focus, work on this reducing jail populations, right, through that equitable access to services and improving how we identify folks that are utilizing these services and making sure that they get the services that they need. Stepping Up offers an online toolkit, webinars such as this one, events, and a comprehensive resource library to support the folks that are involved in this ambitious work. And one thing that makes me really happy about what's on this slide is that almost half of Americans live in a jurisdiction that is implementing Stepping Up, which I think is just such a great example of what's possible in 9 years and makes me really excited for what's coming up in the next 9. Next slide, please. So Stepping Up was launched in 2015, again, with the 3 partners, and really focusing on building that coalition and fleshing out that framework for systems change. Absolutely, from the beginning, understanding that this was not just a one office, one person, one state, or one kind of entity situation, that it really requires a full coalition from the get-go. Very much building momentum with raising awareness of Stepping Up in its first couple of years, holding a national summit, And then releasing the 6 questions framework in the coordinator's handbook. So really starting to develop those resources and launch those into the world, and to support the growing numbers of stepping up jurisdictions to really be armed with the knowledge and the tools to make this work possible. In 2018, we announced the Innovator Counties cohort, and I'm going to share a little bit more about who those folks are. And in 2019, we reached that 500 mark. So really, over the years, growing, developing that coalition, expanding the collaboration. In 2020, supporting counties in the Set, Measure, Achieve framework, and then more explicitly folding in equity and lived experience and racial equity, especially into the work that we're doing. So again, from the beginning, building that coalition, building that collaboration, and to that point, almost making it to the decade. So again, really great momentum over the years, and looking forward to the next iteration of the project. Next slide, please. So we mentioned the cohort of innovator counties, and already the slide is outdated in a great way. We've got new counties to add. There's 49 innovator counties from coast to coast, with our newest addition joining us from Kansas. Within the initiative, these innovator counties are really stepping up in the work, and are recognized by the initiative for their ability to accurately identify individuals in their jails with mental illness and substance use disorder. And these jurisdictions have demonstrated a true capacity to collect and share that data, and really connecting those folks to services. So they're really these innovator counties have really succeeded with the Set, Measure, Achieve, and kind of the six questions framework. So the tools that Stepping Up has really has developed and distributed, and they really kind of serve as peer models for a lot of the work that we're doing. We highly encourage every jurisdiction participating in Stepping Up to assess their progress and strive to become an innovator county by following the steps and the resources that we have. And I promise it's not supposed to be a terribly exclusive club. And so we very much encourage folks to work with the initiative, and to work with each other, really to step into this work and to take advantage of all the great resources that support the innovators. Next slide, please. So one of those previously mentioned tools is the Initiative 6 Questions framework, which is a key component designed to help county leaders determine the extent to which their efforts will have a system-level impact. So again, this informed systems-level intervention mentality, right? So the framework not only aims to reduce the number of people with SMI in jail, but also increasing public safety, applying resources effectively, and putting more people on the path to recovery. The 6 questions were released in a report in January 2017. And since then, they've been updated, which is very exciting. This is meant, again, to be kind of a quick reference, to be supportive of the strategizing that Stepping Up counties do. And I think we actually wanted to drop a link in the chat for the updated 6 questions framework. So definitely, if you haven't seen that before, please take a look, check it out, let us know if you have questions. And then next slide, please. And again, just want to share the 4 key measures that we're really focused on within Stepping Up, again, with that emphasis on data-informed decision making, and really making sure that where we're putting our time and resources and our efforts are to the best possible impact, right? And so these are the 4 measures. The first is to reduce the number of people with mental illnesses booked into jail, reducing the average length of stay in jail, increasing connection to treatment for people with mental illness, and then reducing the rates of which individuals with mental illnesses return to jail. So again, these measures designed to help jurisdictions collect and analyze their data to better understand their population's needs, and making sure that we're really, again, making those informed decisions so that we can really work better together and avoid duplicating efforts, I think, is what it really comes down to. Before I hand over the microphone, though, if you'll indulge me in just a kind of a quick personal thing, NACO's annual conference is coming up in a few weeks, and we have badge tags. We have many badge tags, but one of them is one that identifies the wearer as a stepping up participant. And every year, those badge tags fly off the stand, and our counties that participate in stepping up are really quite proud of the work that they've accomplished in stepping up, and is something that really I think is so wonderful to see, that the folks that participate in this really see the value in it. And it makes me so excited, not just for what we've accomplished, but what is possible for the future. So with that, let me turn it back to you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ken. And then just next slide. So again, this is just a refresher. There are a few different ways that we deliver our technical assistance or TA through Stepping Up. The majority of our TA is through what we call the broad-based TA. And this is really the off-the-shelf resources in the form of webinars like this one, publications, web tools, and one-on-one calls for counties that request assistance. And then in the past, we had done some intensive data projects with counties to understand how people with mental illness and behavioral health needs flow into their criminal justice system. And we developed reports with recommendations. And then we also used to provide some direct technical assistance or TA to Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program grantees through the Department of Justice under a category that focused on stepping up specifically. And then we operate 2 technical assistance centers at the state level in Kansas and Pennsylvania in the form of dedicated staff who work with counties to understand their goals and needs, connect them to resources and peer counties, and provide trainings and communicate county lessons learned, and also challenges up to the state level. Next slide. So this slide shows how the flow of stepping up TA resources, how that flow works. So thinking of this figure as a clock, at 12 o'clock, Stepping Up produces resources for the field. These are the broad-based TA resources that any county can pick up off the shelf. And then moving to 3 o'clock through the TA that we deliver to individual counties, whether that's through one-on-one calls and support through the TA centers, we can curate these resources more closely to counties' needs. So this is a chance for us to get closer to the ground on what's happening at the county level. And then moving to 6 o'clock, our hope is that counties would implement these strategies and practices and track their progress over time. And then at 9 o'clock, we hope that counties are achieving successes, however they define it, whether that's qualitative or quantitative. And then moving back to 12 o'clock, the Stepping Up partners incorporate county information and success stories back into our work. And admittedly, this quarter of the clock from 9 to 12 is the most challenging because of capacity constraints at the initiative level, for our capacity to understand what's happening at the county level, and also just variations in how counties define success and for how counties communicate that information back to the Stepping Up partners. Next slide. And I wanted to take a moment to note the importance of peer-to-peer connections, because I feel like this is one of the most important and valuable parts of Stepping Up. And so from the facilitation of connections that we do at the initiative level, we introduce counties to each other, and they build relationships and connections with each other, sharing knowledge, resources, strategies, and really building a community and a network with each other. Next slide. And this is a general description of how counties can realize success with Stepping Up, and emphasizing that this is non-linear because we know that progress isn't linear, but in general, starting with that leadership buy-in from county commissioners and agency leadership, and coordinating and organizing with systems partners and people with lived experience all at the table, reviewing and setting baseline data, getting funding to start or expand programming, and then measuring program success, again, however it's defined, and then making sure that that information is used to drive decision-making on programs and practices. Next slide. And so to discuss some of the general successes of Stepping Up counties, we find that counties that have that collaborative structure in place, the representative planning team and the designated coordinator, these counties are really able to start and sustain their stepping up initiatives. The counties are also able to accurately identify who's coming into their justice systems with mental illness and behavioral health needs. And they're setting up ways to track that data and their progress over time, and implementing and sustaining strategies to address that intersection of behavioral health and the justice and crisis systems, and improving outcomes for people. Next slide. And then the Stepping Up initiative and the counties aren't without their experiencing their challenges as well. And I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone listening in today, but just starting with turnover at the county level in key personnel. So whether this is the champions of the work, the data analysts, coordinators, changes in data tracking systems, especially the jail management system or electronic medical or health records. This can really impact how data is collected and how it's viewed over time as well. Challenges with sustainability, making sure that to the extent possible that program or practice initiatives are sustained over time. There are political headwinds with shifts in priorities and funding, and we've seen some barriers to diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives over the past 2 years in particular. And then challenges with getting results. So again, whether this is quantitative or qualitative, and being able to see movement in the direction that you want it to on the data, this is a challenge that we've observed among the counties and that they've communicated with us. And then just on the note of communication as well, of just the counties sharing successes with each other and connecting and sharing those successes and or challenges and just information in general back with the Stepping Up partners. And then next slide, I think I'm turning things over to Megan at this point to preview some strategic planning.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Yeah, so we can go to the next slide, please. So I stepped into this role about 16 months ago as the program director for Stepping Up. And about 6 months into that role, we really started thinking about coming up on this 10-year anniversary for Stepping Up next year, and how we could sort of get ourselves oriented and plan accordingly for that. An initiative of this size and magnitude, we really need to be thoughtful about how we, number one, celebrate the accomplishments of the initiative over the course of 10 years, and also think about where we are headed in the future, recognizing that there are absolutely opportunities to learn and grow always at the county level and initiative level, and wanting to take time to do that. So we started this strategic planning process. Well, we started talking about it really probably about 9 months ago, and have really been doing it more in depth in the last 6 months or so. But it's really an opportunity for us to take stock of what is working, where there are opportunities to grow, shift, pivot, not only in terms of how we operate at the initiative level, but also in terms of our scope, reach, approach, etc. Just a really an opportunity to take stock of what is happening. And we really want to be thoughtfully responsive to the challenges that have been faced by our counties. And, it started, 9 years ago, and we've experienced a pandemic. There's been a lot of things that have changed at the national level, and certainly at the county and state levels as well. And so we really want to be thoughtful about being adaptable to that as an initiative. So with the utmost goal, of course, of continuing to support counties in your ongoing efforts to address this important issue, that intersection of behavioral health needs of individuals that are encountering the criminal justice system, particularly reducing that jail prevalence, still remaining that primary goal. Next slide, please. So primary goals of our strategic planning efforts are to identify priority areas for the initiative moving forward, re-examine and enhance, refine our existing resources, and really see if our support needs to shift one way or another, or are we meeting the needs, really taking stock of that. We already did update, as Kat mentioned, the 6 questions document, and that really was in response to the evolving nature of this field, and making sure that we were incorporating equity and lived experience in that work and our lens. And so we continue to really revisit and think about what else needs to be adjusted, adapted, evolving to really be adaptable to the field. And of course, as a part of the strategic planning efforts is to also think about what are we going to do to celebrate the 10-year anniversary, and really think about that. And of course, also thinking about, we've made some remarks about the Set, Measure, Achieve initiative that rolled out right alongside the pandemic, actually. And so we've spent a lot of time internally reflecting on our measures and how we're supporting counties with those measures, and thinking about, are those the appropriate things, or how do we adjust and think about how stepping up should be measured in terms of its successes, and how we measure, quantify, and communicate those successes. So really wanting to hear from you all, quite frankly, and Orleni will speak more about those listening sessions here in a moment. Next slide, please. So the other piece I'll mention as sort of a background piece that I've said a number of times to my team over the course of the last year or so is, I see one of our greatest challenges and opportunities, quite frankly, is meeting counties along this continuum of where counties are in terms of screening, in terms of identifying the prevalence and addressing those prevalence issues, because we've got counties in our Stepping Up network that are all along this continuum in terms of capacity, resources, expertise, et cetera. And so our job is to really sort of develop these resources and guidance that can meet individuals and counties along that continuum. So one thing that we always wrestle with is a depth versus breadth approach in our initiative. And what is that right balance of providing enough depth and guidance in our resources, but also allowing counties to do it their own way and have a little bit of autonomy in the way that they're doing it, and not being too prescriptive in how we guide counties in the Stepping Up initiative. So those are all a little bit of the background pieces internally that we're thinking about. And we really, in the next few months, want to hear from all of you. So to walk you through the strategic planning process and where we are today and where we're headed, we, as Mark mentioned earlier, we are partnering with Orleni Rojas, who will speak momentarily about her work on the strategic planning process. Because, when you're embarking on a strategic planning endeavor, it is really important to have a third party person involved that can really dig into the initiative and give us the honest feedback that we need to hear about what's working and where there are opportunities to grow and pivot. So we're very grateful for that partnership with Orleni and the Center for Effective Public Policy to facilitate that process. So where we started is the Stepping Up partners. So CSG, APAF, and NACO got together in March and had a strategic planning session that Orleni facilitated, where we really spent some time digging into lessons learned. Let's look back on the 9 years and say, okay, what are the lessons learned? What are the things that as we move forward as an initiative, we want to make sure get carried forward? Where are there opportunities to evolve and pivot and think more about what the future could hold? And we started doing a little bit of planning for the 10-year and just how are we going to celebrate where the initiative how far the initiative has come and what we're doing with the counties and so forth. So we had that planning session in March. We have started to have internal conversations with our respective leadership within our organizations to get their feedback and help us think about how Stepping Up as it evolves continues to align with our different organizational priorities and so forth as we continue to move forward. So up next is a series of closed and open listening sessions, which I'll let Orleni speak to more. But the primary goal is to hear from our counties, hear from all of you, hear from counties that maybe haven't stepped up in the way that they maybe would like to, and maybe there's barriers or something standing in the way that we would really like to learn about. And we've got counties, again, that started doing Stepping Up 9 years ago that, maybe have ebbed and flowed in their energy or momentum around Stepping Up. And we really want to hear from them around that. In addition to our, high achieving Stepping Up, counties, the innovators and so forth that Kat made mention of, that, are really, they're dug deep into Stepping Up. And we want to hear from that span of counties and stakeholders around what could we be doing differently. And so I'll let Orleni talk a little bit more about those listening sessions in a moment, but we're also holding closed listening sessions that are targeted toward key groups of stakeholders, particularly within our states where we have state TA centers, our partner organizations, and et cetera. that we're really trying to also get, a broad swath of feedback around. So once those listening sessions are held and finalized, Orlini and her team will analyze the themes that come out of those listening sessions and present that back to us, at which time our team and this collective partners, organizations will review and really move that into an actual strategic plan where we can really think about the future of the initiative, in which of course that will also be packaged and communicated back to the field at large in 2025, as we have all had a chance to sit with those things and think about the future of stepping up. So we're really excited about hearing from you all as our key constituents, our key partners in the field, to make sure that we're really giving you what you need to be successful ultimately, because that continues to be our goal here. Next slide, please. So with that, I will pass it to Orlini, who is going to dig a little bit deeper into the listening sessions and provide a little more detail there.
Thank you, Megan. Hello. If we can go to the next slide. So talking about the background on the listening sessions, and you heard a lot already from Megan. One of the things that in the work that I do around engaging community, and in particular people with lived experience, is this phrase or expression that those closest to the problems or challenges are also best situated or positioned to come up with the solutions to those challenges. And so one of the things that we recognize for you as counties working on stepping up, or those that are not part of the initiative yet, but are working independently on your counties in terms on issues with behavioral health and people with serious mental illness intersecting with the criminal legal system and in your jails, is that you know what's happening on the ground. You have a better view of it. And in the work that Stepping Up wants to do to support you and support the work that you're doing in this area, we see the value in hearing directly from you, not just in terms of the ways in which Stepping Up has helped already, what it's helped you achieve, but also where areas where a different type of support or additional supports is needed, so that that's something that we can take into account as we're working through this strategic planning session and looking towards the future, stepping up ways in which we can understand how things have changed, where there have been improvements. And so perhaps there's less of a focus for the initiative in those areas, and where there's still work, where there's still crisis for us to partner with you and understand how to best provide resources, provide technical assistance, and be a true partner there to achieve efficiency and effectiveness. And so as part of that, we have opportunity for county agency administrators and leaders, the public and other stakeholders to lend their voice. So not just those of you that are here and that are working directly with Stepping Up partners and the Stepping Up initiative, but folks also that are on the ground partnering with you, doing the work. We want to hear from as many people as possible and as broadly as we can go, so that we have all the information. How we're doing that? We are scheduling a series of 90-minute listening sessions. There's 4 of them, and I believe we're going to drop the link for that. And if we don't have the link, I can drop the link for how you can. Great, thank you. Sign up for that. And so there's 2 dates in July, and there's 2 dates in August. Those are open again to anyone and everyone. We have been conducting what we call by invitation only closed listening sessions. And I can tell you that already there's been tremendous amount of information, suggestions, and just overall helpful things that have been shared in those listening sessions thus far, that I know are going to be so effective for stepping up in the strategic planning session. I am facilitating them along with folks from my organization. What we want to do is listen, provide an opportunity, provide a forum to hear from you, to understand what have you loved about the initiative, where are areas where you still feel like you would need extra support or different type of support, and most importantly, what are your ideas for the ways in which Stepping Up can continue to work in partnership with you on this, to not just identify and address existing issues, but also how you can come together to innovate when it comes to this area, when it comes to serving the needs of people with serious mental illness or behavioral health more broadly in your counties. And the Stepping Up partners won't be present in the listening sessions, and feedback will be kept confidential unless you want attribution. You have a great idea and you're really, or you're doing something really great and you are okay with us, identifying that your county is the one that has been pioneering this thing that now Stepping Up wants to step into. And so in terms of that, again, 90 minutes, all of those that sign up, you will receive an agenda that gives you a roadmap for what's going to happen during those 90 minutes. There are 5 to 6 key questions that we have to guide our conversation. But again, if there are things that we don't touch upon with those questions, you are going to have the opportunity to, divulge it and like volunteer for us. We want to hear anything and everything from you. And then in addition to those opening listening sessions that we have, for anyone that cannot make those, we also have an online feedback tool. And I believe there's a link to that as well that was just dropped already. And that's an opportunity or another way in which you can provide feedback. Even if you have attended a closed listening session or sign up and attend one of the open listening sessions, you can still use the SurveyMonkey online feedback tool to provide additional information. Maybe there's something that you think about after we meet, or there's a particular individual that works with you that could have really great insights or feedback to provide. That's another way in which we want to achieve that. Next slide. And so these are the dates that we have already identified and set aside. We try to come up with a range of times and a range of days between July and August to give everyone the best opportunity to participate. But once again, if for whatever reason none of these work for you, please, we do encourage you to use the online survey tool to share your feedback that way. Next slide. And so one of the things that it's very important for us when we are requesting feedback, when we are engaging with community, and we obviously think of counties as like part of the Stepping Up community and a very important member of the Stepping Up community, is to follow up and close the loop. If we're asking you for something, we want you to know how that is being utilized, how we're incorporating it. We want to let you know that, it's not just going into a vacuum or a black hole. We're going to be utilizing the feedback that you provide to inform planning for the 10-year celebration and for the next 3 to 5 years of Stepping Up. And then we are also going to be sharing with you the key findings from those listening sessions and what the overall strategic planning process has been, or where it lands with the field as Stepping Up continues to map out the future direction of the initiative. And so again, we hope that many of you have the opportunity to sign up for listening sessions, that if you are in conversations with other counties, other individuals or partners that have not been able to make this session, that you will share the link for the opening session, for the open listening sessions, and encourage them to attend, or you will share the link for the online feedback tool, and you'll encourage them to share information that way as well. So again, we really want to cast a very wide net with this. Next. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Christopher Chansili to get us talk about additional ways to get involved.
Or Lenny, actually, I'll take this next
Okay.
section just really quickly. Yeah. And then just on the next slide. So this slide provides some examples and ways for how you can get involved or re-involved with stepping up, depending on where you are in your work. And so again, going back to what Megan mentioned with meeting counties where they are along the continuum, we're here for you no matter where you are in your stepping up work. So on that left-hand side, no matter where you are with stepping up, you can reach out to our email address, and we can provide links to resources, facilitate connections to peer counties. We can also do stepping up 101s or 201s with you and your county teams. I saw the question come in from the chat, so this is definitely something that we're able to do. It's a way to bring stakeholders to the table or back to the table and to learn about stepping up and how you can get started or restarted. And then in the case of the stepping up 201s, as we call them, we'll describe and explain how you can take things to the next level with your stepping up work. And then in the middle here, if you have a program, practice, or policy example that you'd like to share with us, we can upload it to the Strategy Lab. And the Strategy Lab is a web-based tool that serves as an inventory of programs and practices all around the country. And these practices are addressing behavioral health at the justice, crisis, and housing system level. And so the tool used to be branded as Stepping Up Strategy Lab, as many of you on the line probably remember. But as the field evolved, we saw that there was a need to frame this more broadly as a general inventory of local examples that are impacting behavioral health in the justice and crisis systems. And even examples of project coordination materials are very important for us to collect as an initiative for the Strategy Lab. I call them informally the pieces of paper that get projects off the ground and serve as touch points for projects. And so things like MOUs, information sharing agreements, job descriptions, progress reports, data dashboards, all of these help keep teams organized, and we upload these into the Strategy Lab so that people who visit the Strategy Lab can see examples of what other sites have done and can borrow a cup of sugar, so to speak, from their peer counties. And then on the right-hand side here, if you have baseline data on serious mental illness at your jail, we encourage you to apply to become a Stepping Up innovator. As Kat mentioned, we encourage all counties to make it a goal to be an innovator county, and that this network isn't necessarily exclusive. And we're currently considering retooling how we define innovator status and really broadening the tent to allow for innovators of different stripes to engage with us just based on their capacity, based on what they are able to share and engage with, and on different topics. So for example, whether that's really focused on their data tracking, or for example, for a program or practice that they really want to highlight, these will be ways that we can broaden the tent for innovators to participate. But you really join a network of peer counties that are excelling at their efforts to address justice and behavioral health. We know that, again, progress isn't linear, and that there's opportunities as well for innovators to stay engaged as part of that network. And I think we just dropped some links to the chat as well. So these are ways to get involved just based on where you are in your work with Stepping Up. And then next slide, I think now we have time for Q&A, and I'll pass things over to Chris.
Thank you so much, Mark. And, just want to mention that, as we are celebrating 9 years and getting ready for 10 years, this is not possible without great partnerships and great individuals. And NACO and the CSG Justice Center have been great partners in this work, and very excited about the continued success as well. And yeah, I just wanted to answer, or at least share some of the questions and answers that were already typed up. And I see that another one popped in. So please feel free to drop any more questions in there as well. And just kind of touching on the political shift toward DEI. And, Mark, thank you for clarifying in the chat there. But we have observed shifts away from or against DEI initiatives. And that we definitely agree that there are racial disparities across justice systems that should be addressed through stepping up work, which, we really feel the updated 6 questions framework can also help to kind of put the data and statistics in front of individuals to start to address that from a systemic piece. We also got a question about presentations or stepping up one-on-one that helps to sell this. Mark mentioned this in his presentation just shortly before. I'll also just mention that on the stepuptogether.org website, there is a 1 minute and 10-second video that I would encourage you to maybe go to the YouTube link and then copy that into maybe an email introduction even before your behavioral health or county meetings as a nice primer as well before you do the presentation. Or Linny, there was a question as well about who from county teams should be joining the listening sessions. And we want to encourage everybody who has knowledge about this intersection. But Orlini, any additional information to share about who should be joining those listening sessions?
Yes, thank you. To reiterate, anyone who wants to provide feedback on the stepping up efforts in your county, so county leaders, criminal justice and community stakeholders, and members of organizations or entities that partner with the county teams on stepping up, who want to share feedback or their ideas for the future of the initiative and ways in which the work and the resources can be helpful to your counties in particular, or the ways in which emerging topics or trends are really impacting your efforts or this work that we might not be aware of and that you would want to see us provide resources and support.
Thank you so much, Orlini. Megan, I saw that you were typing on the one question, but wasn't sure if you wanted to just jump in and about incentives for joining in the 90-minute sessions.
Yes, and I realized I was typing a really long response and it might just be beneficial to answer verbally. So, Rodrigo, I see your question in here about, people with lived experience and whether we will be holding specific, sessions with those individuals and of course having an incentive attached to that. And long story short, yes, we are considering doing that again in towards the end of this calendar year, early part of 2025. We did, in fact, engage with a lived experience advisory panel earlier this year, latter part of last year and early part of this year, who helped us rework our 6 questions document that was recently released. And there were certainly incentives and payment associated with that work with that group. We continue to partner with that group in different ways through, continued discussions and their review of our materials and such. So they are kind of continuing to provide feedback, not through a formal listening session, but through other opportunities. But we are definitely still open to considering hosting a specific listening session in that arena to make sure that we are certainly incorporating the voices of lived experience. We really value that in our work.
Thank you so much, Megan. The next question that is up on my screen here is a national summit part of the discussion for future planning or perhaps regional summits. I won't answer for the collective group, but I think as we continue to strategically plan, a national summit or regional summits might become a part of that long-term strategic plan going forward as we look to celebrate 10 years next May, but also look to enhance the experience for both our innovator counties, but counties in general that are engaged with stepping up. So Mark, Megan, Kat, anyone else? I feel like that's a great idea. I know we've done a national summit in the past to kick off stepping up and haven't necessarily done another national summit since then, have done some smaller regional summits, but definitely a good idea to bring to our strategic planning conversations.
Agreed. It's in discussion as to how we want to pull all of that together. So I guess that's a little bit of a cliffhanger response, but Chris, I agree with your response to that one.
I won't put you on the spot, but if we do decide that we might have to reach back out to the person who asked that question for help in planning or maybe hosting a regional summit, just putting it out there. I don't want to volunteer or volunteer anybody on this recorded webinar. So for the state centers that provide technical assistance to counties, would these listening sessions be beneficial? I would say yes, but Orleni, please, please jump in.
Yes, absolutely. We want to hear from everyone. We've already have started to reach or have had conversations with some of the state centers and are in active discussion with others, state networks, for example, to get their feedback and bring them together. But we know that it's sometimes hard to get everyone that's involved in one session. And so that's why these opening sessions are another opportunity for feedback to be provided. Because they're open, you don't have to depend on a contact person who we've been working on for close listening sessions. You can just sign up and show up and speak. And again, if you're not able to join any of the sessions, we encourage you to use the online feedback tool to give your thoughts and ideas there.
And I've seen some support for regional summits, and the questions come through. And again, I think Arlene just laid it out for you, right? If you think regional summits versus a national summit would be beneficial, bring that up in a listening session. Talk about what you would like to see in that regional summit. What would be a benefit of it? If you can't join the listening session, provide that in a feedback form so that we can, again, make that a part of our planning for the next coming years of stepping up. So again, really appreciate any feedback, information, ideas, resources, anything that you can provide us, either through those private listening sessions, those open listening sessions, or those feedback forms. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm just looking through the webinar chat as well as our Q&A section. Seeing none, I will pass it back over to Mark to close it out for us. Nope, maybe not Mark. Oh, it's Mark. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, then just on the last slide here, there's information about how you can learn more about Stepping Up through our website and also contacting us through our email address or info line, as I call it. But we want to thank all of you for joining the webinar today. Hopefully this webinar was helpful as an introduction or reorientation to Stepping Up. And we hope that you can lend your voice to shape our strategic planning process, whether that's through joining one of the listening sessions or submitting feedback online. And we'll send a follow-up email after this webinar with a satisfaction survey and links to the listening session signups and the online feedback tool. And again, we recorded this webinar, and the recording and the slide deck should be available on the webinar event page in about 2 weeks. But again, thanks so much to our panelists for presenting today and to all of you for joining, and hope everybody has a great afternoon.